Hi, I'm Suhas, and it's lovely to be here, virtually, of course. Almost goes without saying these days, but might as well say it. So, without further ado, I thought, as usual, good to start with context and try to answer the question that why have I been asked to speak to you. And so basically we'll pick it up from where I think you are roughly. And so this is the story that has been on. So yeah, in 2003, I graduated from IIM Calcutta and joined Coca Cola. That was fun. That's not the subject of this talk though, but I really enjoyed it. Left Coke to join Nokia. I don't know if you guys know what Nokia is. Maybe you're too young. It used to be a company that made mobile phones. Yeah, anyway, I was there for a very brief time and was too junior to be in any way held responsible for what happened later. And left Nokia after a very brief stint to start my entrepreneurial journey with ChannelPlay, a company I co-founded with two very close friends. And it's a pretty, one could arguably say it's India's largest retail marketing company. That was a fun 3 years. Exited that in 2009 to start Hector Beverages, which is the company behind Paperboat, which is probably one big reason why I've been asked to talk to all of you. Exited Hector Beverages in 2014 and thought I'll retire. In hindsight, it seems fairer to call it a sabbatical. Because in 2017, I embarked on this gloriously flawed journey to figure out rural healthcare with tech and AI and whatnot. That didn't pan out. It did set up the stage for my current venture called Misters.in. We call ourselves a men's confidence company, and essentially we are in the space of men's sexual health and wellness. As you can imagine, it's quite a complex conversation to have. So anyway, I guess in a nutshell, I'm here to talk about mostly about my life as an entrepreneur and possibly share some pearls of wisdom. So moving on. All right, but before I get on to the wisdom part, I don't know if it'll be wisdomous enough or not, but before that I have a couple of quick rants about Level Unlocked, which is the theme for this event. And when I say quick, I definitely say that with hope, given a track record of verbosity, but hopefully it'll be quick. So about these rants, yeah, the first rant is about metaphors, and the theme here is Level Unlocked, which is why I thought about it. I don't have a problem with metaphor in poetry or in literature, although they can be done wrong there as well, but that's not the point. When examining life and deploying a metaphor, okay, so Level Unlocked, the implied metaphor, like in a video game, you are at this level, you do this, go to this level. What is the doing? You basically find some points hidden in, you find something hidden in a corner or acquire some points quickly, and you move from this level to that. It assumes a set of rules. It assumes a set of rules designed by an intelligent creator, and you as the player have figured them out. And when that metaphor is deployed in a discussion such as this, one is assuming that because of my past and its relevance to your future, I know the way to go from A to B. It's not true, because life is not like that. It's not driven by a set of clearly defined rules. It's complex. It's not complicated. A game of chess can get very, very complicated, but its rules always hold. In life, that is not so. The questions of life are better described as mysteries rather than puzzles. All the information you need to be sure that this is the right answer is simply not available for a mystery. While for a puzzle, you know for a fact that you have all the information needed to solve it. That's rant 1, quickly out of the way. Rant 2 is actually about the format. There is the giver of wisdom. The giver of wisdom has vanity. Can say yes categorically. Then there is the receiver of wisdom and the expectation. And everyone is best served if a neat story is told, if the story is simple and it has A and B and C and no D or something like that. But when you get into people's past, and like I said, this is essentially about my past and its relevance to your future. Whenever you get the right access, you find that the past has several layers. It's not unidimensional. It's not that A to B did this, got this. This thing called retrospective determinism, it's quite a handy term. It's a logical fallacy where one assumes that something that happened was inevitable given everything else. Not too different from the sort of misinterpretation of correlation as causation. It's all in all, basically, the point here is that I needed to give some disclaimer before I said, here is some wisdom. And these 2 rants are actually that disclaimer. But I do think it's good to be wary of a story which is too neat. All right, moving on. Let's get that out of the way. So I will just share 3 unrelated to each other principles that have emerged from my examination of my time as an entrepreneur. And I feel much happier sharing it now that you can figure out where there is retrospective determinism. That said, moving on. So, becoming an entrepreneur, assuming you aren't one already, and given the life stage you would be at, and again an assumption, given that you're attending this event, very often I encounter people who say they would want to be entrepreneurs, but they've also, say, bought a house before they are, I don't know, 30. And there's this pressure which you will experience growing on you as you start working, where one way or the other you basically take a loan, and then the EMI of that loan sort of locks you in to, say, the safety of a salary. And the likelihood of you being an entrepreneur goes down given your liabilities. It's quite straightforward. Won't waste much time with it, but I think it's much more significant than it sounds. Do not buy a house if you want to start your own company. It's very specific. It doesn't sound like great life advice, but I can tell you that if you really fancy being an entrepreneur, then when the pressure increases, whichever way, for whatever reason, in whatever mechanism of that pressure, but that's the one you have to resist. Don't set up a big EMI. Don't set up any bigger an EMI than you might already have if you want to become an entrepreneur. It's just pretty straightforward, but somehow I see that a lot of people miss it. And it sort of sets you up for life if you think about it. So that's one principle, if one may call it that. All right, moving on. So failing well, this is important because I just didn't know of this when I first became an entrepreneur, and because most of the stories of entrepreneurship you hear are about these straight lines to success: idea, brilliant idea, execution. Again, real world is untidy, and like the relationships are more complex than that, and those are stories which are inaccurately told. So I think what a good entrepreneur does is with the same resource pool, give oneself the option to have several shots at broadly what the goal is. It's not what the objective is. It's not like saying, okay, this is the one thing that I will do and I will achieve full success, or I'll achieve great success, or I'll die trying, or I'll like the company will go out of business. So I think it is a skill. It is something that requires a lot of thinking, and it is much easier said than done, because I've been an entrepreneur more than once, and I still am not sure that when I fail well. It's a very difficult skill to acquire. But the point is that when you examine why you failed, what will you do dramatically differently to have a probability of a different outcome? Because it's the world doesn't have clear causation defined. This is the best you can do. You have a broad idea of what you're doing, what you want to achieve, but in terms of how to get there, etc., like what do you do within the problem? Like you say, okay, I'm approaching it this way or that way, and something is more likely to work if you have several attempts, but you also have an ongoing diminishing resource pool. So yeah, and what constitutes a different iteration is also another interesting question. I'll not try to answer that here. I would recommend this book on minimum viable product. I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a great book to read about trying to figure out what works, failing not very expensively, as it were, like failing with enough resources left to try again, and then to try again. It's more if one had to bring in a metaphor, it's more like thinking of entrepreneurship as a slugfest rather than the straight line path to success as it is often represented. Yes, so moving on. So this one, so this one might be very specific to context, because I'm also assuming that there are a number of MBA students in the audience. We tend to obviously, we are trained in a certain way of looking at the world, and the dream is that with enough data we can model anything. And I've been in that. It's a lovely like zone to be in mentally. Like it keeps you really going and making an ever more rigorous model, and it's fun. But the point I have is that a powerful narrative is much better, and it comes first. Modeling is incidental, and especially in the context of entrepreneurship, what you want to figure out is what is your narrative. Like in our current business, what is more important for me in the articulation of our business is to recognize that men have a problem with their self-image if they talk about any need for improvement in their sexual health or wellness, and they are much more likely to have a conversation online with a machine say, rather than a friend. And there are all these complex narratives of masculinity which we see all around us, and therefore all of it put together sort of sets up the use case for an internet business, a direct-to-consumer business for men's sexual health and wellness, rather than any kind of modeling one could do. I've just added some data to, just say, the classic hockey stick effect that is about to happen within some category in India, simply because of how certain lines are in the US or in Europe or in China. It's an analysis we do quite often, right? While analyzing business, as students of business, definitely. I'm not saying that analysis does not hold. I mean, you do see hockey stick effects happening, or the S-curve happening. But much more relevant and current and immediate is the narrative. So if you would like to be an entrepreneur, my advice would be that spend a lot of time articulating your narrative and then do some modeling. Like, the modeling is good to do. I'm not saying it's useless, but what would matter more, invariably matters more, especially when you're starting up, is the narrative. So what is the narrative description of what you are about to do? Again, this is not the headline story. This is not the infamous elevator pitch or something like that, or Shark Tank or stuff like that. I'm not talking of that. I'm saying just for yourself, like when you're out to define, or when you're out to build a business, spend a lot of time on the narrative. But oftentimes we don't, because again, our training makes us think that when we are engaging with words instead of numbers, we are probably not working, or something like that. So my one bit of advice there is that the narrative would matter much more than the model as you go about your setting up a business. Yes, so that's point 3 unrelated points, like I said, and we have reached the end of this presentation. Looking forward to your questions now.